Hi, I am Francisco Estrada, and I am here to talk about fossil fuels. My major premise is the use of fossil fuels is detrimental to Earth and its inhabitants. My first point is that the use of fossil fuels is negatively affecting human health. The second point is that the use of fossil fuels is detrimental to animals' livelihood. And third, global warming caused by combustion of fossil fuels is unattractive. So I'm going to start off with the use of fossil fuels is negatively affecting human health. Well, first we should probably define fossil fuels. Fossil fuels is basically the remains of animals from before, and yeah, it's basically like coal. They form coal, oil, and gas, and we use that for fuel to power our things. When we burn fossil fuels, it releases how do I say it? Contaminants. I would say that pollute our air and our environment. Those contaminants, they affect the human health. One way they affect the human health is if anyone here has asthma. If anyone here has asthma, they know that they are usually the ones affected most by it. Their asthma will be aggravated by it, and they will need to take more hospital visits because of this. The pollution itself is also known to cause cancer. Since there's a lot of chemicals released when it is burned, like I said earlier, a lot of those are carcinogenic. The smog and soot, byproducts of fossil fuel combustion, can burn lung tissue in healthy individuals. So if you don't have any lung problems, it can lead so you can have lung problems. The hidden costs of fossil fuels by the Union of Concerned Scientists, they say that sulfur dioxide, SO2, emissions, primarily the result of burning coal, contribute to acid rain and other formations of harmful particulate matter. In addition, SO2 emissions can exacerbate respiratory ailments, including asthma, nasal congestion, and pulmonary inflammation. In 2014, fossil fuel combustion at power plants accounted for 64% of the U.S. SO2 emissions. So that backs up the claims that it aggravates respiratory problems and also can cause complications in healthy individuals, not only people who have asthma. My second point is that the use of fossil fuels is detrimental to animals' livelihood. The acid rain that I mentioned earlier, it harms aquatic animals. So basically, when fossil fuels are burned, the contaminants that enter the air mix with rain. So when it rains, the contaminants, they make the water acidic. So when it falls in the oceans and it falls on the lakes, all the fishes and the animals in the lakes themselves, they are harmed because of it, and they usually tend to die or have complications of it. There's also, because of this, oil falls under fossil fuels. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of oil spills that came in the Gulf and around various places. And these themselves, they coat the animals in, this is from the Conservative Energy Future, the effects of oil spills. In most cases, the oil simply chokes the animals to death. Others that live face a number of other problems. The oil works its way into the fur and plumage of the animals. As a result, both birds and mammals find it harder to float in the water or to regulate their body temperature. Like it says, it causes complications in a lot of animals. I'm pretty sure the ones that you guys are most familiar with are penguins and how I'm pretty sure you guys have seen like the Dove commercials and stuff where they wash out all the oil from it. They tend to die because of it because, like I said, they can't regulate their body temperature. The acid rain also. Acid rain is formed when sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide mixes with water, oxygen, and other chemicals in the atmosphere, leading to rain and other precipitates that is mildly acidic. Acidic precipitation increases the acidity of lakes and streams, which can be harmful to fish and other aquatic organisms. It can also damage trees and weaken forest ecosystems. That is from the Union of Concerned Scientists. Another thing that backs up the livelihood of animals is that global warming caused by fossil fuels are killing plants. which, as we all know, if you study biology, they plants are ultimately where all animals receive their energy. So if we are killing the plants, ultimately it will end up affecting the animals. My third and final point is that global warming caused by combustion of fossil fuels is unattractive. If any of you guys have ever been on an airplane, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen a loud cloud of smog. And although it may be subjective, it's pretty unattractive. It makes the city line look pretty ugly. Oil spills also ruin public beaches with dead animals and water and contaminated water. So if you ever try to hop in the water near affected places, you'll be covered in oil, and yeah, that'll decrease public beaches. It'll make them ugly. Because of all this, also weather patterns are being altered, producing bipolar weather. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen how our weather has been changing, how we're in a drought right now, and that drought also affects animals and our surroundings. Sort of recap, my first claim was that the use of fossil fuels is negatively affecting human health. 2, the use of fossil fuels is detrimental to animals' livelihood. And 3, global warming caused by combustion of fossil fuels is unattractive. Now, something that they may say against this is that we depend heavily on fossil fuels and we can't just cut it out of our system. Well, we can push to lower it and look for other means of cleaner energy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, Francisco, you identify the proposition. You do indicate what the supporting points are going to be. I have no idea why there's anything controversial about this. Everything that you said, I think everybody in here believes is true. I don't know anybody who denies that human health is affected by pollution. I don't know anybody who says that animals are not affected by pollution. And, except for maybe the third point, I'm not sure anybody's worried that global warming is unattractive. There are other issues about global warming that are more important. You kind of bury them in your argument and you make the appearance issue the most important, and that's not really a global warming issue. That has to do with the haze and the particulate matters that you're talking about in the other section. So I think you've conflated those arguments into being in the same category, and they aren't really, they're distinctive categories. Your description of the effects of pollution on human beings is a little bit vague. But I know that there's just a lot of information that suggests that human beings are affected by pollution. Nobody denies that, as far as I know. The question is, are we doing enough about it? Have we got controls on the pollution? Do we have ways that we're counteracting it? Are we cracking down on people who violate those rules? I think that's where there might be some controversy on this subject. The only citation that I get on that first point is the Union of Concerned Scientists, which basically explains what acid rain and particulate matter are. There's a little bit of stuff about how that has some effect on humans, but that was very vague. And then we also had a statistic that talked about how basically 2/3 of the SO2 comes from emission from power plants. So if we know where it comes from, the question then becomes, are we doing anything about it on the power plants? And it sounds like you're suggesting that we're not doing anything about it. I would imagine that once somebody starts doing research on this, you'll discover that that is not in fact the case. The acid rain risk to animals is mostly asserted. You kind of explained the concept of acid rain, and it sounds like it's a pretty bad thing, but we don't have any examples of animal die-offs. We don't have any illustrations of people or of animals that have been hurt by this. this. You mentioned oil spills, and oil spills, that's a little bit different issue. It is a fossil fuel issue. And again, I don't think anybody denies that oil spills are bad for birds, animals, or anybody who happens to jump into an oil spill. So that's not where the controversy is. The controversy is whether or not they are preventable, whether we're doing enough to prevent them. Should there be something that we're doing that's more effective at stopping them? I think that's where there's some discussion. At the very end of the speech, you actually target where I think the controversy is on this subject, and that's in whether or not we have alternatives available to us for these fossil fuels. And there are some arguments that the alternatives that are available are either sufficient or insufficient, and I think that would have been maybe a stronger way to go with this particular topic. All right, thank you.